cold January morning like today, it can be difficult to imagine those summer months, but they will come, and so will the fresh vegetables, fruit, herbs and flowers. I'm Sean Cameron and welcome to my allotment garden. I'm based here in London, and over the next 12 months I'll be showing you what I'm up to on my garden every week. I've had this allotment for a few years, but it's only been within the last few months that I've got the majority of the plot into shape. Having an allotment takes time and energy, and you should set aside at least 6 months to get it in shape. But even if you don't have an allotment, all the hints and tips over the next 12 months can be easily transferred into your own back garden or windowsill. Remember, the key to having an allotment and gardening in general is to do a little bit and do it often, especially with allotments and community gardens. I've seen so many people take a plot on, work it really heavily in the first week or two, and then take a break and they never come back. That's because they do too much too soon. So just do a little bit and do it often. Set aside at least 3 hours every weekend. And if you do the hard work in the early stages, then you can reap the rewards on those nice summer days. Once I decided on the plan for the allotment, it's only then that I truly started to make progress. Now, I'm not a fan of digging, so this year I'm doing raised beds. I find for me that's the best method. Unless you're really lucky, your allotment will probably look like this on the first day that you see it. Now this site can be daunting, but to tackle it is really easy. Just cut the grass down, then turn the soil over, removing the grass roots as you go. The other method, and the easiest method, although it can be expensive to set up, is to use weed suppressant membrane over the entire plot and then put raised beds on top of that. And the raised beds I got, they cost me about £15 to build. And then in the raised bed you put your compost. I had 4 bags for the price of 3, which was £30. I needed, I think it was about 4 or 5 bags per bed. And then for the path you need bark. But like I said, that does all add up to a bit of money. But if you spend money at the beginning, then you can spend more time doing your gardening and not chasing yourself by just getting the weeds. There'll be lots of fun, but there will also be frustrations and disasters, and you'll get to see everything as it happens. It may be January, and even though the busy seed sowing months don't really kick off until March and April, there are still things you can do in the garden in January. And don't worry if you haven't got a greenhouse, you can still do these things on the windowsill. You can sow these between January and March, and again, it's an easy flower to do. If it's easy, I'm doing it. I don't want anything too complicated. Now when you open the seed packet, sometimes it helps if you open it over the pot, because the seeds may not be in their own packet like these aren't. And the seed for these are again really small, so we'll just pop a few on there. There we go. We are going to transplant these before they go out. Now there's a few more in the seed packet, but I'll keep them for another day. There's nothing very difficult about sowing seed. You just put your compost in, put the seed, and then just cover. There's a few seeds where there's an exception, but on the whole, that's how you do it. And again, pop a label on top so that you don't forget. Well, there'll be no gardening this weekend, not with this snow. But I've just popped over to have a look how things are, and to bring this foam over. Somebody gave me this foam yesterday, so I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing with it. Oh, it is cold. So I thought I'd just bring it and pop it in the greenhouse and have a general look around at what's going on. Oh, look who's here. Would you like some food? That's better. Even in the greenhouse, it's nearly -6. The water in the watering can is frozen, and even the water in the seed tray is frozen over. On a day like today, even in the greenhouse, it's just best to leave everything.
Even though snow looks light and soft and fluffy, I like to take it off the greenhouse because a lot of snow can actually damage things. I've known people's fruit cages to be completely destroyed by snow. So on the greenhouse, I like to move the snow off because that's a lot easier than go in to get a new pane of glass.
Must always have a cup of tea in the garden. Right, put another one there. The next thing I'm going to do is something that I've never tried before. I remember watching an old BBC programme called The Victorian Kitchen Garden with Harry Dodson back in the 80s. It's still available on DVD. In fact, I'll put a link in the description box below. And the whole premise of that programme was to grow vegetables that were familiar to the Victorians. Now, I've managed to track down one of those, and it's Cove Trontuda, and it's a cabbage, and as Harry Dodson described in the programme, the thing about this is it's a cabbage, but the head is another head of cabbage, and apparently you don't get that cabbagey smell throughout the house. So this is something different. So I'm going to give this a go this year. Fill it with compost, and like I've shown you before, just press that down because you want to get all the air out of it. And then I'm going to sow a few of them, and I'll sow some more in March. Oop. They nearly all rolled out then. Oop. There you go, that's enough. Put some more compost on top. Firm that down. Give it some water and put a label on it. And again, put it onto a warm windowsill or in the greenhouse in the propagator.
Now, in a few weeks' time, I'll be building my raised bed, and once I've done that, this side of the allotment is then finished. So I've already got my 2 raised beds in, and the third one will go in this space.
Next door to that, the antirrhinums are just showing the soil there. But there is some movement on the Cove Trontuda. Now this is the cabbage plant that, if you remember, I said the other week, I saw this on the Harry Dodson TV show, The Victorian Kitchen Garden, and that's made an appearance, which I'm really pleased by as well.
A lot of birds are visiting the garden at the moment, so it's a case of topping up the bird table every other day. Last month I planted the garlic, and it's already up and putting on a great show. Next door to the garlic is the onions and shallots. In order to warm the soil up, I've put these window frames on top, and the plants are coming on beautifully. Once they start to get a bit taller, say when they're touching the glass, I'll then take the window frames off. There's certainly a feeling in the garden that spring is just around the corner. Everything is now starting to come into bud. These are the gooseberries, and this is some broom. They'll put on a fantastic show of colour. And the tulips are up. And in general, things are starting to burst into bud and ready for spring.
There's no point sowing any seeds or anything this week. It's just amazing. This time last week, we were out here in nearly short sleeves. The sun was beating down on me last week, and now we're back into the old pullovers and drinking lots of tea. So there's not a lot to do this week.
Remember the amaryllis bulb that I planted back in January? And then last week I gave you an update, and this is how it looked. Well, what a difference a week makes. This is what it looks like today. Beautiful red trumpet blooms.
I was hoping to get my potatoes in today. Don't think that's happening now. The rain has stopped. The ground is a bit sodden, but Jeff's come down. He's going to help me to build a mini greenhouse come cold frame today. Here are the bits and bobs. So we'll have a bit of fun putting this together.
Where are you going to mount it? On the decking to begin with?
Yes. I was thinking, should we just do the frame here?
Yeah. And then you can lift it into
and
place.
then lift it, and then if it's too big or too small, I can then work that out.
This must be these are the two end pieces, aren't they? Essentially. Line it up where you want it on here.
Right, where's the best place then? So that's it. That's the finished product just before the glass goes in of the cold frame come mini greenhouse. And it's a bit bigger than I thought. I was going to put it on top of the raised beds in the vegetable section, but it's a bit larger. So Jeff, just before he went for dinner, gave an idea where I completely remove this section here, so that little greenhouse goes, even the veg truck goes as well, and I put the new cold frame come greenhouse here, but access it from this side. And then this veg truck, the idea is I move the veg truck all the way into the vegetable garden and put it there. That's the way to do it. I'm just going to sit here, enjoy the bird singing, and enjoy the sunset. I'll see you next week.
The amaryllis has now come to an end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the stem down to just above the bulb there and just keep it watered and then wait for these to die back and then store the bulb till next year and do it all over again. But I'll show you that in the coming months. Haven't been able to do a lot on the allotment in the last week. I managed to finish the cold frame and I'll show you that in a moment, but the ground's just been frozen. The temperatures are about -2 today and it's been cold all week. It's a case of just keeping calm and carrying on as best as we can. So I'm just going to take this amaryllis stem off, pop that on the compost bin, and I brought some bags down as well of kitchen waste, so I'll put them on the compost in a moment. Before the cold snap came, I managed to finish the greenhouse. If you remember, I started it in last week's episode. Jeff came down and helped me build it. Well, I finally put the last pieces of glass in. I haven't had a chance to put anything inside it yet because it's just been too cold to start sowing seeds again.
It's good to see colour in the garden and the first signs of life, even if Rusty has other ideas.
Cove Drawn Tudor is basically a cabbage within a cabbage. So the head of this cabbage is another head of cabbage. And the good thing about this is that it apparently doesn't smell throughout the house when you cook it. So I thought it was a worthy contender to try something new this year. So let's transplant. So all transplanting is the process of taking a seedling from its original pot into a bigger pot, because now these seedlings need a bit more space. So just fill your pot up with compost. If you need to press it down, just use the other pot. So put a bit more in, and now make a space there for it to pop in. I'm using multi-purpose compost here, and now we need to take them out. So just turn them over, press the bottom, give them a bit of a squeeze, and there, look at that root system on there. Now, and then gently break them apart. Now try not to touch the actual stem. And then just get our pot, make a big enough hole, and then just gently feed them in. Nice relaxing job this. It's not sunny, but it's dry, and there is a bit of wind, he said, as the wind started to pick up.
And also I created a new bed, and this is where I'm sowing my night scented stock. If you want scent in the garden, I would highly recommend that you try night scented stock. It's wonderful. I'm broadcasting the seeds, which means that I'm basically just scattering them over the ground with no real direction to them. I also moved the last of the manure that I had delivered a couple of months ago. That's now safely on my plot. This side of the allotment is now finished. The work over the next couple of months will be focusing on the left hand side, cleaning it, getting rid of all the junk that's underneath the plastic, and then cultivating it and putting some seeds in. The pond was getting a bit too full of weeds, so I decided to give it a quick clean. This is the larvae of the dragonfly. We had about 2 or 3 of them last year, so it's good to see them back in the pond. When I take the weed out of the pond, I like to let it just hover over for a few seconds. So if there's anything stuck in the weed, it can fall back into the pond.
Mr. Mouse, he's been a bit swift, and he's come in and eaten all my sweet corn seeds. So I'm going to get back onto the internet and buy some more seed. There's so much to do at the moment of putting seeds in, because I need to catch up from the fact that we had a bad March this year. But the seed compost that I've ordered seed compost for sowing seed, and that is gone lost in the post somewhere, so unfortunately that is actually holding me up. So there's not a lot I can do until hello, anybody there? Mr. Wind playing games again. But there is some seed sowing I can do out on the raised beds.
First I'm making a drill with just a bit of cane. That's basically a straight line, just a few inches deep. The seed that I'm sowing today is beetroot. It's the first time I've grown beetroot. So just put a few seeds in every few inches. You can sow them thicker than this, but then you'll have to thin them out later, so I'm saving time now. And then just pinch the soil back over the seed and give it some water. This is where I'll be planting the sweet corn, once I've sown it and it's ready to go outside. Well, it must have been windy, because look, the greenhouse is blown over, and that's full of pots and bottles and things. They're completely on its side, so I'm going to have to move that, and I may take the opportunity and move it further down into the garden. Once a month throughout summer, our site holds working parties. It's an opportunity for all the members to get together and help out with the jobs around the allotment. This month we had to remove an old shed. It's a shame to see such old sheds disappear, but for health and safety reasons this one just had to go. It's a shame to see it go, but times move on. Just to be on the safe side, I'm putting some fleece over the seedlings in the cold frame. With so many seeds being sown, I need to reconfigure the greenhouse so there's plenty of space.
Now to pick rhubarb, you just put your hand down to the base and pull. But don't forget that the leaves of the rhubarb are actually poisonous, so just take them off and put them on the compost bin. This is the first year that you've grown rhubarb, then don't pick any leaves in the first year because you need it in order to bulk the plant up. Look at them. Beautiful pink stalks. I think it's crumbled tonight, folks. Let's have a look how the false rhubarb is doing. Oh, look at that. Beautiful pink stalks. I'm still going to keep the bubble wrap in the greenhouse because it still gets quite cold of an evening and we are still getting a light frost. So just to be on the safe side, I'll keep the bubble wrap in here for the time being.
Also watching last week's episode were Sutton Seeds, and they sent me some sweet corn seeds, variety Swift, to replace the ones that the mouse had eaten. I'm sowing them in root trainer pots, and it's just one seed per station, and I'll keep these in the greenhouse until the last frost.
Hello, Rust. Happy birthday to you too. Well, thank you very much. Pumpkin seeds, and I think I can guess where these have come from. Ta-da! There goes a nice card, look at that. It's a birthday pumpkin seeds from Kai next door. If you remember last year, she had wonderful pumpkins. And these are some of the magic beans from that winning pumpkin. So I'll plant these in the next few days. Look at this. In the near dark, the daffodils and tulips are still lit up. And this is Prince William. Something I put in last year, and that's in flower.
That wasn't in flower yesterday when I was down. Just amazing what a day can change on the allotment. I can only just about see this. 42.7 is the warmest it's been today, and the coldest is 9.2, and the temperature now is 16 degrees. Let me put the light on. I need to give this shed a clean out as well. Nice bit of drizzle. What I can smell now is the smell of rain hitting the ground that's been baked all day by the sunshine. I think this could be the first time in a week that I've seen rain. But I'm not going to spend too long down here tonight. It was just to drop off those plants and check on the mice. But it's beautiful to come down at different times at the allotment and to experience it at different times of the day. In a few weeks I want to be down here about 4:30 in the morning to film the dawn chorus, or to record the dawn chorus anyway. So, right, let's switch off the light and then head home. I don't think I'm going to see Rusty today. He's probably stuck in his bed somewhere. So, I'll see you tomorrow. With all this sunshine, the weeds are also growing. So a lot of time at the moment is spent with just weeding. All I'm going to do is just put the spinach on top, just scatter it. This is also known as broadcasting seed. Broadcasting seed is when you just put it in your hand and just like throw it anywhere. So this will be our spinach bed. Put a few more in, may as well finish the packet. And then just go over it with my hand to make sure that it's covered. Things are starting to poke their heads up now. There's a squash there and melons. Got that exciting feeling of summer is just around the corner. I was just looking at the pond and just thinking how clear it is while I was trying to find any newts. There have been some in there, but can't see any now. I think they're camera shy. And then I noticed just over here, it's the first time I've seen him this year. Can you see him? There he is. One of the jobs I need to do this side of summer is to tidy up this area of the allotment and construct some raised beds, fill them with soil, and then fill them with loads of fresh vegetables. It's beautiful to see colour back in the garden. This broom is putting on a wonderful show. So are these violas. And it looks like it's going to be a bumpy year for currants. The bushes are just laden with flowers. One thing I've noticed this weekend is the amount of butterflies in the garden. The red love apple tree. I planted this about a year ago, 18 months ago, and last year I took all the flowers off because I wanted all the goodness to go into the roots to make a really good plant. So this year is the first year that I'll have fruit on it. And the unique thing about this apple is that apparently when you slice the apple,
the redness goes all the way through to the pips. So that's something to look forward to for later on in the year. Well, there's not a lot I can do today. The wind is starting to pick up. In fact, it's getting worse, and it's starting to rain as well. So I've secured everything that I can secure, and we'll just have to see what the next 24 hours will bring.
Over the past few years, this section has mainly been for storing pots, like the daffodils and the tulips. But I've decided to try and make something of it. The principles that I'm using here are basically the same as if you're taking on a brand new plot. First you turn the soil over and then go through the soil, taking out all the weeds. And try and take as much weed out as you can. Even a small section, it's surprising how quickly it'll grow back into a big clump of grass. If you remember, back in February somebody gave me some old pieces of stone and I wasn't quite sure what to do with them. So I'm going to use them here as some edging to try and contain this bed. And then just make it a bit more presentable by hiding the weed suppressant. If you've got any suggestions of what I can grow in this section, put it in the comments box below.
Something else I'll be growing in the greenhouse this year is cucamelons by James Wong. These were sown on the 21st of April and they're making good growth. And I'll be keeping these in the greenhouse when it's ready to pot them on. Oh, nice stretch after your food. You ready to go home now? Back out into the rain. See you tomorrow. Bye. Bring a bit of sunshine with you. Right, this is handy. I've locked myself out of the shed. If you look, the inside, a little bit of wood has fallen down there, so I can't get in. Now there's another lock up here, so if I'm thinking if I can move this piece of wood, I may be able to get in that way. No, nothing yet. Bit more, nearly there. There we go. I think I've done it. Ta-da! Managed to do a bit of cleaning of the shed yesterday before I left. So it's looking a bit more decent anyway. There's still a bit more cleaning to be done, but it's a start. Now, earlier this morning, Jeff dropped off some seedlings for me just before I arrived, and this is a vegetable that I grew about 2 years ago, and it's called flower sprout, and it's basically a cross between a Brussels sprout and a kale. And if you don't like Brussels sprouts, I'd say give these a go because they aren't as sulphurous as Brussels sprouts. So I'm going to plant these in the garden today.
So I'm just making a little hole, popping the seedling in, but really pushing the soil back down so that it's nice and compacted.
The sweet corn over there, well, that's just waiting to go out as well. And the peas have finally shown their faces as well. They've taken quite a while to come through the soil. It's only on the very rare occasions that the temperature in the greenhouse dips down to about 2 or 3 degrees. So I've decided to take the protection off that I put up in the winter, and then I will put some of this whitewash on top of the glass. And what this one does is, because in the summer when it gets too hot, the greenhouse can just get boiling and actually kill the plants. So I'm going to put some whitewash on just to cool the temperature down. But this whitewash is intelligent. On a really dull day, it allows more sunshine to come into the greenhouse, and then on a really warm day, it stops the heat from getting in. A bit like those sunglasses you take outdoors and they become darker or lighter depending on the weather. So, it's starting to rain, which is good. I'm inside, so it doesn't bother me. So let's take this down. Time is certainly flying this year. It only feels a couple of weeks ago that I actually put this up. And if I take it down carefully, then I can store it and put it up again next winter. I was going to say, and let the sunshine in, but not today. Strange to have that down now. It's like having brand new windows. Right, let's pack this away. And along with all the bits and bobs, I'll put this in the shed. And you won't see this again until next winter. Now, here are the sweet corn. The variety is called Swift, and I planted them back in April. And even though they're not that tall, I'm thinking about putting them out into the open ground. As long as I put some protection around them, I think they'll be okay. The germination rate's quite good. I think there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 misses in the whole of this. So I think there's enough there for me anyway. If I need any more, I can always put some more seed in the ground in the next few days. So let's start planting. Now, when you sow your sweet corn, sow it in a block, and what that it does is it aids pollination. If you put them in a straight line, then the pollen just flies off and you won't get a good set on your cob. But if you put them in a block, there's more chance that they'll pollinate each other. And also, on a fine evening, you can come out and do self-pollination. But I'll show you that when we get to it. So, I'm going to put them into this bed. If you remember, I put the weed suppressant down a few weeks ago, and this already has holes in, so I know where to put the sweet corn. So let's start planting. Now, I sowed them in these root trainers, and the reason why I did that is because sweet corn, their roots like to go quite deep. And if you put them in these root trainers, then there's plenty of space for the roots to go, as you can see. So let's pull one out, and also they're easy to open up and just slide a plant out. So if I just wanted one, I can take one out and then close the rest up and put that back in with the others. So let's take some of the soil out. And we need to plant it up to the depth of the plant. Now, doing it this way with this weed suppressant is a bit fiddly, but it's worth it in the end, because to try and weed in between sweet corn is a nightmare, I find anyway. So there's one. So I'll give that a good watering, and I'll also put some slag pellets down. But just to be on the safe side regarding frost, I'm going to put up this windbreak. Last week I developed this new bed in front of the greenhouse here, and I was looking for suggestions on what to sow here. Well, there were quite a few, but the favourite was peas, and the variety that was suggested was a good variety, but the problem was it grew about 6 foot tall, and I want something short here because of the greenhouse. I don't want anything too tall that will overshadow. So I am going to grow peas, but I'm going to grow one that only goes to about 2 foot. Right, I'm going to show you 2 ways of doing it. The way that the books tell you, and if you want to call it the official way, is you do a drill like that, and then you pop the peas in a bit of a dice shape. So 4 in the corners and 1 in the middle, and you repeat that all along the drill. Now that's all well and good, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it the easy way. So let me just collect these up. So I'm going to make a drill. In fact, I could get 3 in here. 3 drills. The good thing about this variety is that there's not a lot of leaves on there, and the tendrils of the pea almost support themselves. There you go, 3 decent lines, and then I'm just going to, with no real plan, I'm just going to just drop a few in as I go. And then I just cover it over. Because the ground is already damp, I'm not going to water them in. And also we've got some rain forecast for later on today, so that'll save me a job. Now with normal peas you'd put sticks in at this point to give them something to climb up, but I haven't got any. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave them for a few days until I can go and buy some frame that I can put here for them to climb up. Maybe a bit of chicken wire. So there we have it.
Look who's here. It's Rusty. You gonna say hello to the folks at home? Hello to the folks at home. Hello.
Now what's left to do is to enjoy this wind. Nice breeze. All I need now is a Cadbury's caramel. Right, last job to do for today is to straighten that board out and put the compost in, and then that's it for today. It's been a long day. And then a cup of tea, and maybe if it's fine, I might come back tomorrow, unless I'm stuck in the bath easing these joints. So right, let's just get on and straighten this. After 2 years of hard work, the structure of the allotment is finally finished. Obviously, if there's 2 of you, you can do it in half the time.
What I'm going to do next is to pot up some cucamelons. Now I'm growing them in this trough in the greenhouse, and it has a reservoir at the bottom so that the plant can feed itself the water and everything. So all you do is you just feed the capillary matting on top, and then I'll cover this with soil, and then every time the plant needs a drink, it'll feed itself. So the first thing I do is I just water the compost, and then start to fill the reservoir. And it's very easy to tell if the reservoir at the bottom is full, because on one end of the trough a little indicator pops up when the trough reaches its full capacity. So here are the plug plants when they arrive. I've got some in a pot that I did from seed, and I'll be transplanting them next week or the week after. And it's a case of just making a hole like you would with anything else and popping it in, and then you just got to keep sure that the reservoir is full, and that'll take about a fortnight to get down. So we don't have to worry about this now for about a week or 2. So I'll put the next one in the middle there, put a bit of soil around it, and then one of my transplantings I'll put on the end, so there'll be 3 cucamelons in this trough, which I will keep in the greenhouse.
Other jobs I've got on with is to put out the squash from the James Wong range as well. I've got 3 of these in the garden, and give them a really good watering.
I was sent this pumpkin by somebody a few years ago. I think he was in Cornwall, not sure. And all it's called is 749 Bragg 10. So if that's you, let me know.
I also planted out some of the foxgloves that I grew from seed.
The peas, they're also starting to make an appearance. I only sowed these a few weeks ago, and look, they're already up. Just what a difference a bit of sunshine does. One thing I'm really pleased about is the apple tree. There are absolutely loads of buds in there, and if every single one of these comes to fruit, I'll have apples for a few months, I think. Now I could take a few of these off just to help the tree, but the tree has never actually had a harvest, so this year I may judge it as I go along, but at the moment I may just leave every single bud there.
Let's get on and build a fruit cage.
This is the sweet corn. It just seems to have stopped growing. I know the weather's been bad recently, but I would have expected a bit more growth on it. Who knows what will happen. Now I showed you this a few weeks ago, but I'm going to show you again because I just can't get over how much fruit is on this red love apple tree. Like I said before, it's the first year this is fruited, so I'm going to leave as much on as possible and just see how we go. But yes, if every one of these turned into a large eating apple, I wouldn't be buying apples for a long time, I don't think. Starting to rain, so I've had to come indoors, but I've just looked at this. If you remember, on the 21st of April, because it's on the tin, this is a plant that I sowed. It's cucamelons. It's from the James Wong range, and these are the seedlings. Now, if you remember, when was it? Fortnight ago, I planted some plants that I had, so I'm going to put one of these seedlings here, but I'm just really impressed with how easy these cucamelons are to grow. Well, I've just come home from work. It's about 9 o'clock and dusk is starting to set on the allotment, but just as I arrived, a scent just hit me in the nose, and it's this night scented stock. Now, if you've ever watched any of my videos, you'll know that I absolutely love night scented stock. It's got a really nice scent to it, and it's one of those flowers that reminds me of past events in my life. So if you ever get an opportunity, grow some night scented stock. It's wonderful. Hello, welcome back to another episode. I'm talking really quietly because it's 4 in the morning is the start of the summer solstice. Rusty's also come out to celebrate the summer solstice, so we're just going to sit and listen to the dawn chorus. Well, that was the start of the summer solstice. I've got no idea what the time is, but Rusty's gone home and I'm going to head home and get some sleep, so I'll see you later. The sweet corn is starting to bulk up as well. It's starting to catch up on the time it lost last month. It's only 9:30, but the temperature is already nearly hitting 26 degrees. So I've come down early to try and get as many jobs done as possible before the sun gets a bit too hot, because I don't mind the sun, but I can't really work over 26 degrees, so let's crack on. Well, I'm going to lift the onions. We've been promised some really glorious weather over the next 5 days, and that's perfect for the onions, because what I need to do now is just lift them, shake all the soil off, and then let them dry in the sun before you store them, because if you don't do that, there's a possibility that the damp will go into the bulb and ruin it, and you don't want to ruin all this hard work. Look at that one, I think that might be the best one of the bunch. So, right, let's lift them. Now, all you do is just put the fork in underneath, just gently lift. Don't pull them until you've loosened the soil, and then just brush the excess soil off, because if you just pull them you'll damage the necks and then they won't store very well. I'm quite impressed with this crop this year. Now we need to dry the onions. What I'm doing is I've just got this bit of matting and just go through them, just make sure that all the soil is off and any flaky bits of skin, and just lay them out in the sun for a few days if you can, but if you can't, then put them in the greenhouse. But it says it's going to be sunny for us for the rest of the week, so I'll just leave them out here, and then after they're nicely dried we'll then store them, and we may even try and do like the French do, those plats. At last, the sweet corn has started to catch up after those few weeks that it missed in May. So I'm going to remove the wind barrier so that more sun can get to it. Look at it, it's looking gorgeous. Now putting a bit of weight on, and if you can just about see, that's one of the courgettes that I planted. Now if you look at the base of the sweet corn, you've got these like suckers. Now because we want all the goodness to go into the one
stem of corn, I'm going to take these out. So just gently pull them out. And then what I'm going to do is just tidy that up as well. If you then put around here some fresh compost, that then gives it a spurt, so it puts more energy into producing beautiful corn. That's one for the blooper reel. Just look how beautiful these red currants are. There's a bit of bindweed trying to grow up amongst it. Just take that out. But look at them. It's going to be bumper crops of red currants this year. Now these are the white currants, and these always come in after the red ones. But the ones that may be ready for picking are the black currants. I haven't looked at these for a while, so you're seeing them same time as me. Now there's a few there, but no, they need another few weeks to just colour up a bit. But when they do colour up, there'll be quite a few of them there. Look. Not quite sure what I'm going to make from these this year, so if you've got any suggestions, put them in the comment box below. This is the rocket that I sowed about 2 months ago now, and it's already gone to seed. And my plan was to pull the thing completely out, but somebody put a comment on the last video, and apologies, but I can't remember who it was, of just cutting it down to just a few inches above the ground. And then you get a nice fresh crop coming out from the base. So I thought I'll give it a go, because this rocket's been quite nice this year, even though it's only been out for a short amount of time. Next door to it is the spinach, so that's still okay. So at least by doing this it gives a bit more sunlight to the spinach. So if you've got some rocket and you're not ready to say goodbye to it at the moment, then have a go at this and we can both see fresh crops in a few weeks. Although in this weather I think we might get a fresh crop by the end of the day. Now this is the first year that I've grown beetroot, and I've got quite a good crop. I just put the seeds in, I didn't bother to thin them out. But one of the things that you have to do with beetroot is to make sure that it's well watered. But this one's ready for harvesting, so the ground is so dry I can just pull it out with my hand. Just push that soil back to protect the other one. But there it is, my first ever beetroot. The apples on the red love tree, they're also taking advantage of all this hot sunshine. And at last the peas are finally starting to bulk up, and there's quite a lot of peas in there. Now with this variety you don't need to support it because it supports itself, and it's been quite a good variety so far. Hopefully the taste will be as good. My globe artichokes are putting weight on now. They're looking really nice. Kai's just popped down, she's doing the old daily watering.
The daily watering.
And she's heard on the grapevine that we're having this sun for the next month and a bit, isn't it? Till the end of August.
I believe so. That's a lot of watering. That's an awful lot of sweating as well.
An awful lot. But at least the flowers will
benefit from it, hopefully. Now, it's been getting quite hot recently, and things in the greenhouse starting to suffer. The temperature's up really high, and however much water I put on the floor, it's still affecting the plants. So I'm going to shade the greenhouse with some emulsion, and this emulsion here is intelligent emulsion. What it does is, if it's too hot, the emulsion becomes darker, so less heat gets in, and then on dull days it becomes lighter. But all you do is just put it on a glass like that. You don't want it too thick, because remember, at the end of the season you've got to take it off again. And you don't need it on every pane of glass, just where the sun is. So I'll do this pane and these ones here. Sweet corn is really growing at the moment. All this sun's done it a world of good, but now it's time to pollinate. And like I said before, to pollinate sweet corn, all you do is you wait until the tops get to this stage where you can see all the pollen's just waiting to fall off. And just to be sure of a crop, just put your hand, just lightly shake it, and then the pollen falls down onto the actual tassels, because this is where the cob will grow. So I'll just do that with a few others. Look at the red love apples, beautiful specimens on there. And now the tree has shed a few over the last few weeks, so what's on there now will probably come to fruition, and I'll be eating those in September if the weather stays. This hanging basket's put on a fantastic display this year. Look at those petunias, those like yellow and purple petunias. Look at them, and the geranium in there. Viburnums in there as well. All looking beautiful. There's a bit of deadheading to be done. That means just pull the dead flowers off, throw them away then. But yes, it's gorgeous, this. Beautiful. The heavens have just opened and the rain is falling, but I'm not complaining because I can't remember the last time it rained, so I'm just going to stay in the greenhouse and enjoy the rain. All the fruit is ready for picking, so I'm going to start off with the blackberries. Well, here are the red ones. Fantastic crop of red currants this year, and the wind is starting to pick up, but I'm in a nice secluded spot here, so I think I may continue and harvest, if I can get them for you, and harvest the white currants. Look at them. And I'll take these home and then I'll weigh them up and see how much of a harvest I've actually got. So there we have it, the bountiful harvest of 2013. This is the first harvesting of the spinach. I put this in about 2 months ago, and the good thing about spinach is you can just take the leaves as and when you want to use them. So I'm just going to have some for my dinner to go with my beetroot salad. There you go, that's enough. This is my pumpkin that I put in, and look at all these flowers, and it's trailed out of the raised bed. So I'm actually going to cut this off there because I don't want that, but it's trailing all the way, if I can find the end of it, all the way over here, and in there is a courgette. So I'm going to leave this side to go wherever it wants to go. Wind is certainly picking up now, and like I said, I'll cut this back to that joint there, and then in a week I'll have a look at the flowers and examine, because I only want to leave 2 flowers on at the end. But next door to that, now I thought this was a courgette, but I've got them mixed up obviously, and this is another pumpkin. There's 2 courgettes next door to it, so I'm gonna have to train that one along the rest of this bed here. My sweet corn is absolutely beautiful. Look at the tassels, and the cobs now starting to bulk up. I'm still coming down every evening just to make sure the pollen falls onto the tassels. If you want to, you can actually pick some up in your hand and just put your hand over the tassel like that. But I think we'll have a bumper crop this year with the corn, if it doesn't blow away, that is. Now I'm just inspecting my cabbages. If you look underneath, you'll see I've just found a caterpillar there. I'm just going to pick that off, put it on the bird table, and I'll do that with any others that I find as well. So I'm going to have a quick little look. And also next door there's a lettuce ready for harvesting, but I think I'll have that for my dinner. Look at that, another beauty. Peas are ready for harvesting. This is a Mange 2 variety, so they are quite small. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pods for pea pod soup. And once I've picked all these, because I think this is the actual crop now, I don't think there's any more flowers there. Once I pick these, I'm going to rip them all out and then sow another lot of seeds. If you do decide to do a second crop of anything, well, pick something that's going to come into harvest quite quickly. You don't want to be sowing main crop peas in July and August. So what I'll do is I'll put a first division pea in here once I've harvested all these. Now I know they do say don't plant the same thing in the same spot, but that rule really applies to, say for example, if I grew peas in here for like 5 years, but for the same season, that's fine. That's why it's a good idea to do your crop rotation every year. Good thing about these peas is they haven't had any support whatsoever. The tendrils seem to be supporting the peas themselves. And I've already tasted them, they're beautiful. So those are the peas for my tea, and like I said, I'm going to use the pods for pea pod soup. So now I'm just going to get rid of all this, pop it on the compost bin. not bad, is it? Peas, courgettes, beetroot, lettuce, spinach, and I think I'll take an onion from the shed as well. If you want to find out what I'm going to do with all this, then keep an eye out for my other series, which is Sean's Cookbook. Press the subscribe button here on the Hort channel in order to be sure that you don't miss anything. Bloody hell. Well, I think that's what we call an outtake, folks. Oh, right. Have a look at my feet. Oh, it's rather smelly, right. Just give me 5 minutes and I'll get back to you. Look at the corn. It's really starting to bulk up now, and I'm really impressed because there's actually about 4 cobs to a plant here, so you may actually have too much, but then you can't have enough corn, can you? But look at it. Beautiful. This sunshine's been doing it the world of good. Now, I've had a lot of emails from people asking, how do I know when a pumpkin's appeared? Well, you look for the flower, and then just behind the flower you will see the pumpkin there. Now on this particular bush I've got quite a few pumpkins, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sacrifice this one in order so that far more goodness can get into the other 2 on the plant. So I'm only going to keep 2 on this particular plant, and yes, I'm actually going to cut this off. So I'm just going to follow that particular stem back because there's no point keeping all the rest. I'm going to go back to a joint of where the next fruit is. There it is. I'm just going to cut that and then get rid of that as well. That also helps to expose some more sunlight into the squashes that I've got growing in this section of the plot. Another thing I like to do when I'm in the pumpkin patch is just go through and just look. If any of the leaves are starting to turn yellow, I'll just cut them off. And especially the ones that have gone brown, like that one there. That's not going to do anything at all. It's just going to fester and just bring disease to this patch. So just go through the secateurs, chopping them off. Obviously be careful because you don't want to chop the main stem off by accident. And these are the flowers, so you won't get any fruit behind them. The bees will come and absolutely adore them. Now, if you remember at the start of the show, I tried to tell you about apples, but we got slightly distracted. Well, this is the red love apple tree, first year that it's going to come into a harvest, and it's absolutely laden. But the problem is, some of the leaves are sticking out over the path. So what I'm going to do, if you can hear me over these planes flying over, they obviously aren't a lover of apples. I'm going to cut them back. Come back in about 30 seconds when that's gone. It's one of those evenings today. There's 2 now, there's one over there. I should charge them for flying over. Maybe they've got Sean Allotment tours going on. Right, where was I? Now the branches are going over the path, and there's no point leaving them there if all I'm going to do is just to bump into them and keep shaking the tree all the time. I've had to put this old fork here just to hold the tree up because there's so much fruit on this side, and in the winter I'll put a proper stake in. But for the time being I'm going to do some pruning, and I'm going to prune back. So if you see, there's some apples there. So these are the apples, and this is the new bud that will go straight up and form another section there. So I'm just going to cut in front of that. The direction of this bud is going up rather than out, which is exactly what I want. Now the one section of the tree that I'm not going to prune back is the central stem, because I want that to go up as high as possible. So I'm just concentrating on these little side shoots. So if you look at this one here, we've got one going straight up and one going out. Well, the one going out there will start to cause problems when it goes over the path, so I'm just going to cut that back to the main trunk and chop it off. Just stand back when you do this just to get a better idea of shape. As you can see, it needs to be propped up a bit like that. And if you do see any apples that you don't like the look of, don't be afraid to chop them off, like that one there. It's gone a bit mouldy in the middle, so just chop it off. I think that's actually perfect now. It's a nice shape, a nice bountiful harvest, especially this section here. This is absolutely laden. Right, let's enjoy the peace and quiet for a moment. Now the chives have come to an end, and as you can see, the seed is just sitting in the heads there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest these so I can do some more plants. So just cut them off and pop them into a container or brown paper bag. Whatever you do, don't put them into plastic bag because they'll sweat and then they'll go mouldy. And then I'll come back later on once I've done this and I'll just tidy the plant up. You get quite a lot of seed in just one head, so I'm not going to be using all of these. I've had these chives for about 3 years. And all I do is I just cut them down at the end of the season, which I'll show you in a minute. But let's deal with these seeds. Now there's absolutely hundreds of them there. I'm not going to need them all, so I'm just going to bag up a few. Then I'll give the rest away. In fact, that's enough for me. Don't forget, because I always do, put the name on the packet and also put the date. And then I'll store them in the shed and we'll sow them in the spring. And then all I do is I just get a handful and cut it about 12 inches from the ground. It looks harsh, but it'll be okay. It's a beautiful smell when you do this as well. And there we have it. That's all you do. Just give them a quick haircut and then they'll just shoot back next year. Thought I'd give you a quick little update on how the crops are growing. Look behind the leaves. And that is a beautiful pumpkin. I think that's a really nice size. I'm really proud of that one. And also on the path, if you see in there, there's another one. And I've only just actually discovered this one. I was just about to walk down the path and then I nearly walked into it. And this is the squash bed. And I counted the other day, there's about 12 squashes in there, so there'll be plenty to see me through the winter. The corn, I'm expecting really great things from the corn this year. But if you look at it just below there, you'll see the marrows. They're now bulking up. Now here are the cougar melons. I've been growing these all year. This is one of those fancy exotic James Wong seeds. And I've actually eaten quite a few of them over the last few days. And you want to pick them when they're fairly small, like that one there. And all you do is just pick it off, just take the bit of the bottom off and pop it in your mouth. I quite like them. I gave one to Vivi yesterday though and she spat it straight out. But then 10 minutes later she was like, oh, I quite like the aftertaste. They're a cross between a melon and a cucumber with a hint of lime. So give them a go. They're certainly refreshing on a really hot day like today, because in the greenhouse it's 40 degrees, so I'm going to get out of here.
I recently bought a new time-lapse camera. Now one of the goals that I have is to do a time-lapse of the allotment over a year, but I've just been playing around with it today and here are some of the results. And not only does it film in the day, it also films in the night as the moon just flying across the sky. So I'll be playing with this over the coming weeks.
Now a way to see if your sweet corn is ready is to look at the tassels, and if they've turned brown, that's an indication that the cob is ready to pick. But if you're a bit unsure about it, what you can do is just gently peel back the top few layers. And what happens then is it allows you to have a quick little look inside. So just peel them back gently, because if it's not ready you can put them back. And what you're looking for is to see how the top kernels are. And there, that looks ready to me. If you wanted to be absolutely sure, you could just pop a nail in, and if the juice flies out like that, then it's a clear sign that it's ready. So to pick the corn, put your hand on the actual main stem and then just force your cob off. And now let's just take all this off. So let's open it up and have a look. Looking good. Look at that. Beautiful specimen. Now there's a few sections at the top that don't have any kernels in, but on the whole I'm really impressed by that. Vivi and Jeff are down here, so why didn't you go and have a look what they're up to, and I'll eat my corn. And in fact, I think I'll try a few. Very nice for your breakfast, these are. Very juicy, very nice. And I've just picked my second sweet corn and I'm really impressed by this. Look at that. That is a beauty, and everyone full on every side of it. Now if you remember a few weeks ago I planted some lettuce, and this is called Winter Destiny. And as you can see, some of them need to be transplanted because they're getting a bit big. There's still time to sow this if you want it. So I'm just going to use a pencil because I don't want to take them all out. I'm just going to loosen and just raise the soil up so I get a better look at that system there, that root system. It's wonderful. So just gently put my thumb in and just rip them apart. Then just put that back down, and I'll just add a tiny bit of soil down the side just to pack it up.
and then put that back onto the growing bench for next time. Now I need to part these again because I want them as singles. So there's one, there's two, and there's three. There's some smaller ones there, so I'm fine. I'll put those in as well. Now I'm just going to make a hole in a pot of multi-purpose. I think the hole needs to be big. No, that's fine. And then just pad that in. I'm still keeping these outdoors, and then I'll move them indoors when the first frost comes. Now, if you remember, last week I said I was going to enter some of my corn into the local show. Well, the show's not till Saturday afternoon, and I have to go on stage on Saturday morning, but the problem that I have is I have to be on the other side of London, so I can't do it Saturday. But they do allow people to go and put their exhibit in on Friday between 6 and 7 o'clock in the night. Now, I would normally cut the corn at about 5 o'clock, then go off and stage it. But the problem is, tomorrow, the weather forecast said it's going to rain all day. So, it's Thursday night, it's about 8 o'clock, it's just starting to get dark, so I've left it as late as possible. So I'm going to have to take my corn tonight and just hope that it doesn't dry out too much before the show on Saturday afternoon. So let's have a look at what cobs I can take. So I'm looking for the biggest, and I need two for this particular class because it's 2 sweet corn. Now that looks a big one. Now when I break it off, I'm going to try and take as much of the... Oh, it's covered in ants. Right, that's snapped off, but that's fine because there's no other cob on there. But yes, let me go and dip this in some... Let me get a cloth and just wipe all these ants off. Hold on. Now the second biggest one, I think could be this one. There's a lot of ants all over the plant. Again, let me just go and brush these off and I'll be back in a moment. So let me have a look. Now that feels full. Not as full as this one though. That's quite hefty at the top fridge until it's time to exhibit them tomorrow, and then we'll find out the results on Saturday, so join me then. Rusty, do you think I'm going to win a prize? No, please yourself then. Well, it's Saturday afternoon and I'm heading back to the show to see what the show is like and to see whether we've won a prize. Well, I'm back from the show, and also in the raffle I won some flags. So the flags are out to celebrate second prize for 2 sweet corn. Now, I ate 1 sweet corn on the way back, but this is the other one, and I thought I'm just going to open it to have a look what it looks like around the rest of the cob. So let's just take the string off. One of the things I forgot to do with this was to actually put down on the show bench what the variety is. And yes, it's a perfect cob of corn all the way around. Look at that. Look at the size on my pumpkin. If you remember what it looked like last week, this has just grown week on week. It's getting not just a tiny bit, but really like doubling the size. That'll be a nice specimen come Halloween. These are my flower sprouts that I sowed a couple of months ago. And if you look in there, you'll see those are the actual flower sprouts, just next door to the ants there. And it's the same with Brussels sprouts. If you look in the axil of where the leaf is and the main stalk, you'll see these small little bullets, and they're the sprouts.
Now the next thing I'm taking down is this, which is the cucamelon, and it's the first year that I've done it, and I found it to be very nice. I quite like the flavour of it. I know that others didn't, but what's been quite good that I've discovered this year is that it does like to climb, so next year I might build a structure for it to go up. But like everything else now, it's coming to the end, and just doing this just emphasises that feeling that summer has come to an end, and now we're moving into the cold season. But let's hope that it's a cold but short winter this year. I grew the cucamelons in this trough with the reservoir at the bottom, and look at the roots on that. That's for the cucamelon. In fact, that's just for the one plant. Look at it. Beautiful sight that is. Right, let me get this out and recycle the soil by putting it on one of the beds. Look at the roots on that. Well, the sweet corn's put on a fantastic show this year, and I've had a really good harvest from it. But now it's time to just get the rest of the cobs up, and I'll freeze the sweet corn and then pull the plants down. And then wait until next year, where we do it all over again. The variety of this one, if you forgot, is Swift. So I'm going to swiftly pull them all up. Look at that. Interesting. There's not a lot of root to this plant, is there? And I'll break all this down and pop them onto the compost bin. Now, if you remember at the start of the season, I put this whitewash onto the greenhouse just to try and stop some of the sunlight from getting in and scorching everything. Well, it's October and it's time to remove it, and all I need is just a cloth and a bit of elbow grease. There we go, I can just about see you. Kerry! I've only got another 6 more panes to go. Right then, it's time to pick the pumpkin, and I've got a saw because it's so thick the stem is.
Look at that, cutting the umbilicus.
Now,
What's that?
here it is. Oh,
Oh my giddy goodness.
oh,
Oh!
it's coming apart in my hands here. Vivi's going to try to roll it into the bag.
Yeah, I'll hold the bag open.
Jeff isn't here, so I'm on the camera. Right. Okay, there we go. Oh, hold on. It will beep when it's ready.
Sean, yours is more
62.2.
dense.
Yeah.
Is that
So-
nice
You
one?
definitely
Oh
have to
my
say
There we
God,
go.
that's
Yes.
humongous.
The funny thing is,
That's the one that's got to crop the seeds.
I've never tasted a pumpkin before, so this might be a waste. It might be a waste of time. Now, one thing that Kai's just picked up on is the weight of the bag. So we've put that onto the scales, and that's £2.32. So the overall weight was
60.
£60, says the nurse. Well, the red love apples, they're ready to pick now, and I tested one this morning, and they are beautiful. Now, I've had this tree for about 3 years, but I've refused to let it fruit until this year. So at the start of the season, if I've seen any fruit on there, I've taken it off. And that's mainly because I wanted the plant to concentrate on putting all the energy into actually creating the tree. But now this year is the first year for cropping, and what's good about these apples, I will show you in a moment, let me just pick these three, is when you bite into them, look at that, the redness goes all the way through, and also they make fantastic juice, and when you put them into your pies, the redness stays there even after they've been cooked. Now, is that them all? I think it is. So, how many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Because Vivi came over this morning and had 2. So yes, that's been a nice grower. So if you want to grow this, it's called Red Love Apple. Now, before you put your apples inside to store, just have a quick look at them, and if you have any that have any holes in or are quite soft to the touch, use these now. So I'll just cut those bits off and I'll eat that later, and then the others, they can go inside into a dark frost-free place, and you can, if you want to, put them into some paper, but the key is to store them and make sure that they don't touch each other. So just put them out like that, and these, if I don't eat them all, should last me about 3 months. This week is the last time that you can put your seeds in for winter lettuce. I sowed these at the end of August, if you remember, and at this time of year, don't pick the whole lettuce, just come in and pick a few leaves, and don't pick them all from the same plant. Just take a few leaves from a few. But if you haven't done it, then get on and sow some seed this week. And these will stay in this cold frame now until they come to an end, which will be the end of winter. Now, this is the bed that I had my pumpkins in, and I know some people would like to just sit down now for a couple of months and not do anything, but it's time to crack on. So I'm going to use this bed for my onions, and then just pop the bulb in and then cover over, just leaving the top of the bulb exposed. Now, the last thing you should do is push the bulb in, because what that does is it damages the roots on the bottom. So always put your finger in. Now, the spacing, they should be 6 inches apart, but to be honest, if you want a small bulb, then plant them closer together. If you want a bigger bulb, plant them further apart. So just try and imagine that if the onion is there and you want it that big, well, just try and picture the next onion will be that big, so therefore that onion needs to go into this space, but it depends whether you want them big or small. Now, you will have to keep an eye on them over the next few days, because the birds think these are actually worms and they have a tendency to lift the bulbs up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some protection on top to try and prevent the birds from getting to them in the first place. So you can either put some fleece on top, or I have some of these old lights, these old windows, and I tend to put them on. And what this will do is it will help to warm the soil up, and I'll leave these on until the last frost is gone, which will be in next May. So I'll just get an extra piece and I'll put it down there. If you haven't got any windows, then a piece of fleece will do the same job. And there we go. I'll just keep my eye on them, and I'll water them when it's dry. But that's it. That's the red onions finished now until next May. Now this is where I planted the sweet corn this year, and what I'm going to be sowing now is some green manure in the form of mustard. First of all, just need to weed it. A few weeds just established themselves in the weeks I've been away. Now, I'm not being too precise about this. I'm just going to disturb the top 2 inches of soil, and if any weeds appear as I do it, just get rid of them. And now let me get the seed. This is the seed I'm growing. It's mustard, and how small the seed are. And you don't have to be precious. It's just a case of scattering the seed on like this, and because it's slightly damp at the moment in the weather, I'm not going to bother to water it in. They feel like hundreds and thousands, you know, like you put on cakes. And then these will start sprouting in a few weeks. And then once you've put the amount that you want, just get your rake and then just gently rake over the top so that it covers the seed. Like I said, you don't have to be too precious about it, because the rain will also wash some compost over the top. I did this last year, had a fantastic crop. So it's quite an easy thing, this green manure, and it occupies the land during the winter, and then on the calmer days of spring you just dig it into the soil and it'll give some nutrients to the next plant, which I haven't decided what I'm going to sow in this one yet. I'll decide that next year. It's slightly shriveled a bit. I actually forgot that it was in the shed, so I didn't check on it as often as I should have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut it open and get the seeds out. It's quite easy to cut. I thought it'd be a lot harder than that. I wonder if there's anything inside. There's quite a few seeds in there. Right, let me scoop some out. So I'm just going to scoop it out and then store them in order for me to use them again for next year. If you remember, a fortnight ago I sowed some green manure, and this one is mustard, and in only 2 weeks it's already sprouted and doing great. This will now stay here. I won't bother with this now until next spring, when it's time to turn it in and put it into the soil. And this looks like a cabbage. That's because it is. It's a variety called Covetron Tudor. And if you ever watched the Victoria Kitchen Garden with Harry Dodson, he grew this, and so it's an old Victorian variety. And he was saying the good thing about this is that it doesn't have a head, so that is actually another head of cabbage, and you just take the leaves off, and apparently it doesn't smell when you cook it. Just taking the annuals out. There's a few flowers on there, but they'll go into the compost bin now. And apparently it doesn't smell when you cook it. Just taking the annuals out. There's a few flowers on there, but they'll go into the compost bin now. There's a few flowers on there, but they'll go into the compost bin now. Just taking the annuals out. There's a few flowers on there, but they'll go into the compost bin now.
These are the annuals I did from seed at the start of the year, and I'll do them again next year. The good thing about doing stuff from seed is you can change the varieties, so you can grow something different every year. These are the flower sprouts, which is a cross between a kale and a Brussels sprout. And you need them, they're nice and hard now. So I can just cut one off. There they are. You can actually buy these in the shops now. I remember when you couldn't buy them in the shops. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lift the whole thing and take them home for my Sunday lunch. Give them a good pull. There we go. Now I want to keep all this soil, so try and get as much off. There's a weed there, get that out. Try and get as much off as possible, because compost costs so much these days, doesn't it? And the fat worms in there as well. What I'll do is I'll cut the roots off, pop them into the compost, and I'll also just snap this off, and I'll throw that into the compost bin as well. And there we go. That's my sprouts for my Sunday lunch there. Flower sprouts. Give them a go if you've got a bit of space. I haven't checked on my onions in a while, so let's have a look. Hey, look at them. It's nice to see a bit of green in the garden at this time of year. Now they're starting to touch the glass, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to build another raised bed and then put all the panes on top of that. I've just turned up and I'm stood on my plot looking at it, and I thought something's different, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Can you see what it is? Did you see it? Now they did predict some high winds coming in the next 24 hours, but it looks like the high winds may have already been, because my fruit cage, wow. Have a look at that. Last night we had a major storm, and I've never seen this before, but the allotment is actually flooded. Now the pond wasn't as full as this when I left, but just look at this. It's not that bad, it's just on this little section here. If you look at my neighbour there, look at that. Their runner bean bed is completely waterlogged. More like a pond. Rusty's here. Come to say his Merry Christmas greetings to you all. Let's see how close we can get. Look at it. It's only in this section, so it's not that bad. It'll dry out. It'll just take a few days, that's all. But at least it's filled the pond up. That needed a bit more water, but the wind's blown all these pots in, so I'll take those out before I leave. Well, we've come to the end of the year. Rusty is exhausted. We're all exhausted. It's been a good year. We've had plenty of sunshine, a bit of frost in the beginning of the year up until May, and now from November, December, very high winds that are causing some problems. But on the whole, it's been a good year. And on behalf of Jeff, Graham, Vivian, Kai, and myself, and Rusty, just like to thank you for joining us every week. And we'll be back in 2014 to do it all over again. We must be mad. So from everybody else and me, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year.